Welcome to Talking Halo. It's Derek Ciapola with Jared Timms and Nate Green for our Sunday edition. In the world of not a whole lot's going on, but we're going to talk baseball anyways. Jared, how you doing?
Fantastic. We got the first golf tournament of the year on out in Hawaii. This is the century. Extremely excited about that. Oh, yeah, we have baseball to talk about too.
Well, it is the last week of the football season,
Yeah.
regular season anyway.
One
You
day,
know,
one day closer to baseball season. That's what that means.
Nate,
Yeah, excited. One day closer to baseball season, just like you mentioned, and trying to end this fantasy football season off strong.
you got someone going today?
Oh yeah,
I only have one league left.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm surprised that most people are done by now.
Nope.
Nope. All right. Well, we do have some stuff going on. First things first, Zach Plesac gets 1 year, $1 million. I saw a lot of people down on it. I'm not down on it. Jared, you seemed okay with it. How do you feel about bringing in Zach Plesac for $1 million a year?
He's under what I thought he was going to get. Way under what Nate thought he was going to get. So point Jared on that one. But regardless, I like it's $1 million. Anything in that or under $1 million. We saw it with Kolarek. Easier to get rid of than other guys. Would I like to see a minor league deal with like a spring training invite? Absolutely. But I mean, I'm not upset. The upside is for him to be, one of those guys who's a spot starter. He has options that you can use as well. So I mean, the Angels have, contrary to belief, the Angels have actually done decently well with pitching of late. You look at like compared to what they've done in the past, it's not great or anything. They're not the Rays, they're not the Dodgers, they're not anything in particular, but they've done a lot better with producing pitching. I mean, take a guy like Chase Silseth, who was drafted in the 11th round, 13th round, something like that. I mean, you don't expect to get a guy like that in the 13th round and produce him into any type of major leaguer. And he was the first guy that made the major leagues out of that draft. So the Angels have just done a really good job of, a better job of producing pitching. So I'm intrigued to see what he brings to the table, especially for $1 million a year. Not upset about that.
Nate?
Yeah, I like it for a mil. I thought it was going to be way more than that, knowing how the Angels do business. So 1 mil is worth it for me. Added the splitter, which could be interesting to his repertoire. And then the one thing that I will caution when everyone says he has options, I think teams will be willing to pick him up for $1 million. Like that's the difference between like if he signs for five, it's easier to get him through waivers. I think there'll be some team who's like, oh, $1 million, we need a starter. They're trying to sneak him through waivers. We'll claim him just because he's probably better than anything else that teams are going to be looking at that point. So that is the one thing that I will caution people saying, oh, there's options. It's $1 million. Teams are willing to take on $1 million. So especially for a starting pitcher who has had success in the past. So I am interested in him. I know he doesn't walk too many guys. I know he throws strikes. If you can get him to, if you get a really good defense behind him and you get him to be competitive a little bit more, because some of it is like too much over the middle and like that's why he gets hit. But yeah, I'm interested. I think this could be a guy who can push Griffin Canning or Tyler Anderson, which is what the Angels need. They need guys who are going to push that back end of the rotation, because this back end of the rotation should not be guaranteed. There's not anyone, honestly, like there really shouldn't be anyone in this rotation who should have a guaranteed spot going into spring.
More competition, the better. That's how I see it. I don't understand a few of the complaints. It's a $1 million contract for 1 year. It's not like they're paying 20 or 10 or 5 or 3. So you take a shot. It comes out and has good pedigree. Came out of an organization that teaches pitching well in Cleveland. So shoot, go for it. Go for it. In other news, the Angels are finalists in the Imanaga sweepstakes. What are the odds? I mean, I saw a report this morning that it's down to 2 between the Giants and the Angels.
That is the report coming out of Japan. I don't think anybody really knows, to be honest, but I'll say this: the price that article said, I'm skeptical of it. 30 years old. And you're going to give a 30-year-old who's never pitched in the major leagues. You have to change baseballs, by the way. Different baseball coming from Japan and Korea to the United States. So different baseball, you have to learn something different, something else that, again, Yamamoto is going to have to get used to. We saw Shohei Ohtani had to get used to it and adapt to it. Anybody coming over, or even coming back for that matter, a guy like Miles Michaelis who came back, still had to adjust to a different baseball. So anytime you're giving anybody like that $1 million, $100 million, should I say, that's a huge risk. Giving a 30-year-old that amount of money too is an even bigger risk, knowing that you're probably going to give him 5, maybe 6 years for $100 million, if that is the number that is, that's what the article said. So it's a risk to me. I went and watched more video on him. I just needed to get a better feel for it. And I like it. It's interesting. I don't know if he fits the Angels window, just because I think, this year isn't the Angels window. Next year, I mean, we talked about it, might be the Angels window. You start looking 2025, 2026 is when the Angels window starts opening. And at that point, he's 33, 34, 35 years old, and you're paying him $17 to $20 million a year. Stuff wise, I absolutely, again, I love him. I think he's absolutely nasty. The fastball plays well. Has 6 pitches, doesn't throw a splitter, which is a big no-no for me, which means hopefully that elbow is a little more intact. He's got the slider. He has a cutter that he doesn't use a lot. He's got a nice little changeup. And he's got I think it's a sinker or 2-seam as well. So I like him. I think, and the command's there. The fastball plays very well. Again, one of the only negative things, fly ball pitcher. You moved in the short porch in right field, which is tough. And we saw what happened to Tyler Anderson last year. Fly ball pitcher, doesn't really mix well with what Ron Washington's good defense is. So I don't know if he fits well with the Angels, but as a pitcher, I like Shota Imanaga, and I think he's going to be a fine pitcher if he can transition with the ball and to American hitting. So,
Nate.
Yeah, the other thing you didn't bring up is the innings pitched that he had in Japan. Not a lot of innings pitched, which is interesting. Doesn't fit what the Angels need. The Angels need guys that are going to eat innings with this young group. I think 155 or 158 was the most he threw in a season. I don't know. I'm skeptical about reports. I've been skeptical all offseason just because nobody has been right, and you've heard me say this. It's a lot of I want to be first. I don't want to be right. If I'm wrong, at least I was first. Bull crap. So I just waiting until it's official. He only has a couple days left to make a decision. Physical and everything have to be complete by the 11th, I believe, or 10th. So I'm expecting a decision within today's Sunday. It probably comes tomorrow, at some point. So interesting. I'm not sold on him. I think Jared's a little bit more sold on him than I am. He kind of reminds me of Kikuchi when Kikuchi came over, like very similar style and everything. Kikuchi threw a little bit harder. Imaga's got a little bit better fastball. But I don't know. I think he's a number 3 in the rotation, and to be given $20 million to a number 3, now you really start to, I think Jared and I were talking about this, you really start to compare him to other guys that are going to be making $20 to $25 million, like a Tyler Glasnow and guys like that. And is he better than that? I don't think so. If he's getting the 15 to 17, now you're comparing him to guys like Evaldi and Anderson and guys like that, and you're like, okay, like that's fine. But if it's 20, 25 mil, that's where I'm going to be a little bit cautious. But if it's 15 to 17, it's interesting. I agree with Jared. I don't think he fits the window, but you gotta exhaust the pitching search, because like I mentioned earlier, nobody's job should be safe. Everyone should be having to compete for a rotation spot. I don't care if you're Patrick Sandoval or Chase Silseth or Reed Detmers. Like, if you suck in spring, you should not be guaranteed anything, because nobody in this rotation has pitched good enough to be like, this is my job. I'm this guy.
A couple things to point out as well. One, when talking about the pitch, like Kodai Senga last year walked a ton of batters first half of the year before settling in. I put a lot of that to the he already had a walking problem, but it was pretty bad the first like 3-4 months before he settled in, then became dominant. So I get the ball part of it. 2, it makes me wonder about where the Angels are with other pitching out there. So here's my question for you guys. if the Angels were going to get one guy, Blake Snell or Imanaga, who you rolling with?
Snell's gonna get north of 25 a year for 6 years plus, probably maybe 7. Imanaga's getting 100 mil for 5. I'm probably taking Imanaga just because Snell has been such an up and down pitcher. They're both risky though, to be honest. Like you could get Cy Young, potential Hall of Famer Blake Snell at some point, or you could get the Blake Snell that we saw at the beginning of the year in 2023, where it's like you don't know what you got. Same thing goes with Imanaga though. I don't know, man. I'll take Imanaga because it's going to be less money than what Snell is. But I think they're both very, very risky. And I mean, I'll ask my question after this, Nate, if you want to answer this, because it blends in nicely with what I
Yeah,
have.
unfortunately, and I'm not a big Blake Snell guy at all. I think I've made that very, very clear. But I would take Blake Snell in this scenario just because of what the Angels need. The Angels need a bona fide ace, a guy who's going to pitch at the top of the rotation. And Blake Snell, it might be 2 years from now that he pitches at the top of the rotation type of guy. It could be next year. He's kind of been up and down where it's been like Cy Young type of year, really bad year, hurt, and then oh hey, I'm good again. So I'd rather take that risk. I don't really see Imanaga being anything more than a 3. I think he's going to sit somewhere in that 3.7 ERA, maybe low 4s, and just compete, kind of go 5 innings, like kind of exactly what you were expecting out of Tyler Anderson going into last year. Like, hey, throw up a 3.7, throw 5 innings, keep us in ball games, and then we'll move on to the bullpen. And I'm just not in on that.
Just to know, just for people who say, well, Blake Snell is notorious for slow starts. Did it last year. So when Jared's talking about slow, early 23, that's his MO. So if the Angels do sign him, fans, you gotta be ready for the fact that he always is rough to start the year. So before you pile on, that's how you roll. You do want someone consistent, and it's usually where he rolls into if he doesn't get hurt. Jared, you had a question.
I did on top of that. I mean, you're looking at the pitching market, and I'm not understanding the pitching market right now at all. So you get guys like Lucas Giolito who's getting 20 mil a year. You get Frankie Montas who's getting 16, Manias and Nick Martinez who are getting close to 15, 14 a year. Like that's a lot. Even a guy, and I know we were in on Yamamoto, but Yamamoto getting 27 a year has never pitched in the United States. Shota Imanaga has never pitched in the United States as well. We're talking about $20 million a year. This pitching market is like, and I understand why the Angels haven't gone out and gotten anybody, because if if the Angels would have spent $20 million on Lucas Giolito, we're losing our minds here. Montas getting 16, who had a really bad year last year. Manias getting 2 years for 14 a year, which is tough. I mean, Tyler Anderson was coming off a good year, but that's a lot of money there that you gave him last year as well. Like I said, the pitching market, I don't know if it's really a question or more of just a comment and something to think about. This pitching market is I think it's a little bit stupid right now, in my opinion.
Inflated?
I'd say it's inflated. I don't know if it's Shohei Ohtani. I don't know if it was because of Yamamoto, all these really good pitchers. Sonny Gray started off, got 25 a year, which is a lot more than a lot of people pegged him as. Granted, he was a Cy Young candidate last year, but I mean, for what you're getting in this pitching market, and we thought this pitching market was going to be pretty good for what you're getting, you know, it's a lot of what you're paying for what they did in the past. You're not paying for what they're going to do. Sonny Gray, Nate, I thought I was talking to you about this before, but like I brought up Manaea, I brought up Montas, and you're like, they're high upside guys. It's like,
Well,
yeah,
not Mania, but Montas is.
yeah, but like these guys haven't even pitched well this last year. Like I can't
Montas is
even.
coming off the shoulder reconstruction. He pitched what? He made one start or pitched 3 innings just to kind of show. It's kind of the Noah Syndergaard thing. Like we signed Noah Syndergaard to 21 a couple years back. That is exactly what Frankie Montas is. That is literally the same exact thing for $4 or $5 million less. So I understand the Frankie Montas. I've never been a Sean Manaea guy. I don't love the 14 million for him.
Nick
I
Martinez
think it makes a lot of
14.
sense though. Huh?
Nick Martinez getting 14 a
Yeah,
year. Like
that's
even Sonny
absurd.
Gray getting 25 a year is a lot. Like
Especially
this
Sonny
pitching
Gray's a
market's
five
insane.
inning. He's a 5 inning guy. They don't let that guy go more than 5 innings just because they know third time through the order he gets hit a little bit. So um I agree, and that's why I posed the question I think about a week ago, which starting pitcher would you go trade for? And I think the trade route is the best route for the Angels because it's going to fit the timeline of where the Angels are at. You can go get a guy like Edward Cabrera with Miami who's got 4 years left of team control, or I believe it's 4 years, it could be three. And he's gonna fit that model of like, hey, we're gonna be really good when he's 27 and he's got 2 or 3 years left. Um, and he's got electric stuff. He throws upper nines with a really good slider, and he's a fun pitcher. You got a guy like Michael Kopech who's got 2 years left to control. Um, I know I threw in Bryce Miller, and you'll say that the Mariners don't trade with the Angels, but you never know. And everyone's going to sit here and go, "Who do the Angels have to trade?" Taylor Ward makes a lot of sense. He's got 3 years left to team control. He's 30 years old. He has shown that he can be a good offensive player in this league, and the Angels can trade and then go get a guy who's I've been saying this the whole time. Go get Cody Bellinger. And Cody Bellinger is a guy that doesn't have a huge market right now. And if you're paying 20, 25 million for a Cody Bellinger who has upside of being um, an all-star and potentially an MVP candidate with Mike Trout and hitting behind Mike Trout with a left-handed bat and things like that, this could be really that's the route I think the Angels need to go if they're really in on the pitching market, because 20, $25 million for Imanaga, where it's like, what are you going to be, a 3.74 guy with stuff like
What did Senga get last year? 85?
I'll check that as
Five
you
for 85
continue
because
on with this.
like everybody's comparing Senga to Imanaga, and in Japan, Imanaga's there. Everybody's saying scouting wise he's a step below, and I agree with that from what we saw at a Senga last year. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, this the pitching market
5 for 75.
Yeah,
Well,
like,
I would say this 5. That's a CJ Wilson contract.
yeah.
That's perfect
And we're talking about Imanaga getting 100 mil. It's like, come on,
for
that
for 5 years as well. Like
yeah.
And
that,
Senga's better.
Yeah.
Senga is way better. Yeah.
Um,
So that's why I say trade market. There's Cabrera. I think Matt Manning could be had out of Detroit. Bryce Miller. The Mariners are willing to move starting pitching. We just saw them move Robbie Ray. And I think they're still willing to move another guy. And who knows, maybe they get in the Blake Snell sweepstakes. You have guys like Kopech. I mean, you could go through the entire Marlins pitching staff and be like, hey, would they move Trevor Rogers? Yes. Would they move Edward Cabrera? Probably. Would they move um what's the kid, Max Meyer from there coming off TJ? They'd probably move him. Like there's a lot of pieces that could be moved, especially for teams that don't want to pay $20 million for an offensive piece. Taylor Ward's under control for 3 years. You're probably going to get him at a good rate. And I don't know. I just think that makes a lot of sense with where the Angels are going, trying to build this thing. They're not one player away. It's not, hey, we're one pitcher away from being a World Series contender. It's going to take pieces to make this team really good. So I think the trade route makes way more sense just based on what Jared was alluding to, is like this starting pitching market is going absolutely bananas for guys that it's like, okay.
I mean, it's economics 101, supply and demand. There's not a really good supply, but a lot of demand. So those guys who are out there who really shouldn't be getting the money they're getting are going to get more. I mean, there's not really, outside of Shohei being that free agent, he's not even pitching this year. You had nobody else who's of a higher level. So these, in a year where people need pitching, Blake Snell's going to get a contract a little bit above what he should get. And these other guys, Jordan Montgomery, is going to get something higher than he should be getting. Why? Because people need pitching, and there's a shortage of quality stuff, supply and demand. So people ever wonder about econ and course time. Yeah, I'm a social studies teacher. There's the real stuff right there. It's just how it works. People who shouldn't be getting paid, getting paid. Oh, so Robert Murray has the Angels says the Angels discuss Michael Taylor and Adam Duvall as of late. Fill us in, Jared. Give us the lowdown.
Yeah, no, I like it. The Angels need a backup outfielder, somebody who, if Mike Trout goes down, and also the Angels need a right fielder right now too, as it is. They need another outfielder, so somebody like this makes sense. They were also in on Kiermaier and Harrison Bader before those guys signed. Those guys made a lot more sense. I know the money was a little bit more, but those guys made a lot more sense than I think Duvall or even Michael Taylor does. But yeah, you need somebody that could play center field. I know that Mickey Moniak's there and everybody's extremely excited about Moniak, but again, he was a 220 hitter last year. He hit a lot of home runs, struck out a lot. That's not somebody that you want playing every day in the outfield. We just mentioned Taylor Ward. He's coming off injury. You don't know about that. Mike Trout coming off injury. You don't know exactly what Mike Trout's going to be. Is he going to be able to play 140 games, 150 games this year? It's going to be nice to get him off his feet as long as the Angels don't go sign a DH. So yeah, the Angels definitely need another outfielder. Michael Taylor makes a lot of
Wait,
sense. Duvall,
what did you say Moniak hit last year?
was he
He hit 280.
280? Wow,
280.
I was way off. My bad there.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought he hit 220. Probably because he struck out a lot. So that's my fault there, guys.
113 strikeouts and 323 appearances.
Yeah, so struck out a lot there. 280 hitter,
Yeah.
fantastic. For me, again, I'm not relying on it. Maybe hit 220 down the stretch. Is that what it was? Like he got real hot at the start of it.
August,
Yeah,
August,
Cole.
he hit 202 and then 260 and 270 in September. But
So
after the All-Star break, he was a 260 hitter, which is probably closer to what he is. Maybe probably closer to 245, 250. But yeah, I agree and that's another reason why I said Cody Bellinger. Like, I think that goes right into what I was talking about. Cody Bellinger makes a lot of sense. The funny thing that you say Michael A. Taylor doesn't make sense for this roster, I think he makes complete sense because he's been a fourth outfielder for the
yeah.
most, like, he's been a fourth outfielder for his career. He's not like, I know teams are looking at him as a starter because he did start for the Twins a lot last year because Buxton couldn't play center field. And I think he was number 2 in defensive runs saved as the center fielder of the Twins. He might have been the number 2 defensive run save in baseball last year, if I remember correctly. So really, really good defender, plus defender. The interesting thing to me that brings up, Perry and staff have said they do not want to move Mike off center. You're not signing Harrison Bader or Kevin Kiermaier to play them in a corner, right? Like, there is no business signing Kevin Kiermaier to play him in a corner because he brings no value in a corner. He is an elite defensive center fielder, and he is a below average hitter. He's a 260 hitter with 10 homers.
Well,
So if you're
Well-
interested in these guys and you're saying you're not going to move Trout off center, what is going on here? Are you really interested in moving Trout off center if there's a guy that's out there that makes sense? Because Cody Bellinger makes sense to move Trout off center because that guy's an elite center fielder.
Well, no, it's not necessary. I don't think it's necessarily moving Trout because at the end of the day, and this has been said before, it's not up to it's only up to one person if Mike Trout moves from center field, and that's Mike Trout. And I think eventually he will. It's just like Torrey Hunter, right? Torrey Hunter at some point he said like, hey, like I'm done in center field, like I got to go play. Every great outfielder does it, like it's our time. Same thing with shortstops. Like every great shortstop, it's his time. Cal Ripken, A-Rod, like all those guys had their time that they had to move off a shortstop, off the premier position. And it comes down to Mike Trout. I don't necessarily think this is replacing Mike Trout right now. I think it's worst case scenario, just like Anthony Rendon, right? Like, what's the worst case scenario with Anthony Rendon? He plays 30 games, right? Same thing with Mike Trout. Worst case scenario with Mike Trout, he plays 50 games this year. Like, you need somebody to replace now 110 games in center field. And is it Mickey Moniak? Maybe. Like it would be nice to have, somebody who's been a little bit better long term than just 1 year of Mickey Moniak. But yes, I don't think it's necessarily replacing Mike Trout, though. I think that Mike Trout's replacement's a couple years away if you're looking internally. But yeah,
But you understand the point, right?
Yes,
like,
I just don't
Kevin
think it's
Kiermaier
replacing
is a
Trout.
265. He hit 265 with 8 homers and a 741 OPS last year.
No,
that is
you're
a
not,
below average offensive player.
Yeah,
you
he's
are
a
not
corner.
sticking that guy in left field and saying, "Hey, go hit 265 with 8 homers."
Yes.
That's a below average left fielder.
I mean,
Same thing goes with
wouldn't it-
Bader. Same thing goes with Taylor. Like they're most valuable is
center fielders.
Yeah.
So
I mean-
that's why I'm saying, like, if you're actually interested in these guys, are you going to really push Trout to say like, hey, we want to move you off center, because you can say that Torrey Hunter wanted to move to right field. Torrey Hunter didn't want to move to right field. He was told like, hey, you're moving to right field because we got this kid coming up, right? Like that was what happened. They sat down, had an adult conversation with him and said, you know what's best for you and what's best for this club is you to shift to right field. And Torrey Hunter understood that and was like, you know what, I'm willing to do what's best for the team and move off center field. Now you have to have that conversation with him, but you have to have a guy to move him off, right? Like you can't just ask Trout to move off and be like, well, we don't have a center fielder right now.
Research for you real quick. When did Torrey Hunter move off? How old was he?
I think
34, 35? Check and see when Borges came up, because it was Borges that moved him.
Yeah.
It wasn't Trout.
But also Trout has been playing since 19. Torrey Hunter was a little bit older when he came up, but I'll do that as you keep going.
I mean, I would also say that I would hope, and I just want to say hope, because that when it comes to the Angels, they don't do a whole lot right these days. I would hope, considering that the news is out there that they're looking at center fielders, that they've already had this conversation with Trout, the one you're saying they should have. By now, you don't wait until after you go hunt somebody down and sign them to go have that conversation with Trout. You have that conversation first. Hey, we're gonna go look at center fielders. We want you to place them right and left. Some DHing. That's what I think is actually going to happen. I think they're going to DH him some, just rest him. So, because they don't have a DH anymore.
34, 35 is when he started to move off center field.
Different players, by the way, as well. Torrey Hunter, like Hall of Fame caliber center fielder. Mike Trout, very, very good center fielder, but like statistically is not the same as Torrey Hunter. So different, but
really like 3 extra years of Trout playing before Torrey Hunter really played in the major league. So you take that 34, you make it 31. How old's Mike Trout?
Yep.
There you go.
Just easy comparison there.
Ryan Brazier as well.
Former Angel there. Former
Yes.
Angel. He's probably going to get a lot of money there. He's probably going to get more than Garcia. He's probably going to be close to that Tepera range. He's shown more than the Tepera, more than, he's probably been as good, maybe not as good as Loop is, but he's probably been as good as he's been for as long as Loop was. So there's a little bit more there. However, for me, again, bullpen wise, how volatile it is, I'm not paying anybody over $5 million in the bullpen unless it's a premier, I can't think of Devin. What's his name?
Devin Williams.
Devin Williams, Josh Hader type of guy, and the Angels aren't in that spot to go sign those big name relievers at the moment. They're not a reliever away. They have a lot more holes that they need to fill than giving a premier reliever that amount of money. So, but former Angel, it's always great to hear Brian Brazier's name because it's a great story. But again, paying him that much is what I think he's going to get is a little bit rough for me.
All right.
Screams Ryan Tepera 2.0, by the way. Very up and down career. Like, look at it. I mean, he had the 1.5 in 13 games with the Red Sox. Last year, he was a 3.02 ERA guy. He gets DFA'd by the Red Sox, picked up by the Dodgers, has a career year, 0.7 ERA, and you're going to pay him $8 million. And he's going to go back to being a 4.7 ERA. And people are going to be like, oh, why did we pay Ryan Tepera basically 2.0? So I'm out.
I the moment you said Ryan Tepera, I'm like, oh gosh, here we go.
That's what he is.
Know how you feel about Ryan Tepera.
That's what he is.
It's not even just Ryan Tepera for me. It's a bullpen thing. Like I would so much rather just take chances. The Angels did a really good job a couple of years ago when they signed Cishek and they signed Tony Watson, and I think they signed one other guy late in the off season, like after they got let go by their teams at the end of spring. They signed them for $1 million each. Those are the type of signings that really make good bullpens, and I'd love to see the Angels get back to that again. But the Angels actually, like, the bullpen is really interesting. I'm very intrigued in the Angels bullpen. You have a lot of really good pieces like that throw hard, that have really good movement that the Angels haven't had in the past. Like we talked about Kevin Caceres, who's been on my radar forever, Jose Soriano, Ben Joyce, Sam Bachman, who I think they're going to push as a starter, Estevez, who's thrown hard. Like, the Angels haven't had guys that just chuck up there of late. So I'm intrigued in the Angels bullpen, to say the least. So I don't think they need to go spend big money on bullpen pieces.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up, unless there's something else, just baseball you guys want to hit at. You have
No.
5 minutes to roll this.
I got nothing. We were one day
Got
closer.
nothing?
One day closer to baseball season, and I
One
think
day.
hopefully it starts getting a little more active so we can talk about stuff. So
Yep.
All right. Follow us on X. Me at DC Paula. Follow Jarrett at Jarrett_Tims and Nate Green 34 or at Talking Halos. You can find the entire team here. Until next time, we're out of here. Have a great one.